Hell's in the Hippie, Episode 3.
We have a show now. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty neat, man.
All the money we're making, I suggest a 75-25 split to the hippie. Is that fair?
That's very unhippie of you. So obviously, I will hold you to your own standard.
All right. 50-50.
Which means you value nothing material, which means it's 95 to me and 5 to you, and we'll find a nice little charity for you to give your 5 to.
A charity of your choosing, no doubt.
Hell's Bells Sanity Fund is what we'll call it.
HBSF.org. Yes, I like it. Speaking of sanity, so, you're definitely a much more experienced trader than I am, and we're both in the market every day, every week. What's your take on this Twitter Elon business? I want to talk about that.
So is it from a market standpoint or from a...
Anything.
Or from a societal standpoint? Because it's like that's where it gets a little bit goofy. These two things are always separate. They're never one and the same. From a market standpoint, companies get bought and sold all the time. You get activist investors coming in all the time to different companies. I don't think it's anything different than what Carl Icahn has been doing his entire career. I don't think it's any different than what companies like Bain Capital have been doing for years. I don't see the difference. I don't see the difference in what he's doing and what Bezos did with the Washington Post. I don't see anything from a market standpoint to where it's a problem.
I always have been surprised that the SEC hasn't cracked down harder on that guy, but I'm really not surprised because, he's the richest dude in the world. That's probably something to do with it. But did you see that tweet he sent out today that said if his offer is rejected, he'll have to reconsider his stake in Twitter? Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Like, is that walking some kind of fine line that Bezos did not do with the Washington Post? This kind of public statement that if you don't accept my offer, I might sell a crap ton of shares and I don't know. I thought that was kind of a heavy-handed tweet.
Well, that was also on the heels of two current investors saying that they would not agree to sell to him.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
So it's like,
true.
look, it's like context is everything. It's like,
sure.
They're saying, and one of them said that he pays 60 a share. But when he said that, the stock price didn't move, so nobody cares.
And isn't that guy worth like $200 million or something? The guy who said he would pay 60. I saw that somewhere, but I didn't verify it. I don't know if that's true or not. But
I don't know. Look, it's like what somebody is worth and what they can raise and leverage are two different things.
Well, that's a great point. That's right. So it's a new thing, though, like just the fact that they're tweeting those things at all during a potential transaction this massive. It's just a very contemporary thing. But imagine those deals back in the day, right? $1 billion deals. I mean, it's very few people in shrouded mahogany-lined rooms even knew about it. The ability to publicly discuss these things in real time, I think, is one of the reasons why the society, or at least the market, is so interested in this saga.
I think the market is always going to be interested in anything that Elon does. Anything Elon does, the market is going to be interested in. I'd much rather things be put out there for public viewing than in those mahogany-lined rooms or those country club locker rooms or the 12th hole at Augusta. It's like I'd much rather the conversations be put out there and there be a level of transparency as opposed to not. And that look, I think for me it goes back to personal preference. I prefer to see it that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. A little bit more light in these areas of such influence has got to be a good thing, to my mind. So that's interesting. You framed it in two contexts. You said market-wise, it's not that big of a deal. Companies get bought all the time. Then you said socially, let's talk about that side of it. That's the unique part of this person, and we do have to kind of face it. It does come down to one person. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to flip it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know you're going to disagree, and you're much more informed on this, so you might convince me that I'm wrong, but I get the feeling that you are more of an Elon Musk fan than I am. And the innovation and amazing, technological innovation that is driving, his companies are driving forward, I don't know if that's a great thing. So the technological innovation and the technocrats that have, sort of gained footing because of it, I'm probably a little less enamored of that, I think, than you might be. But I could be totally wrong. That's my read. Is that you're bullish on Tesla, for instance? That's just one of his companies, but it's a technological step forward. It's the future. I've heard you mention that many times, and I'm not saying it's not. But I'm also reminded of that film Wall-E, if you've seen that. And the idea of technological innovation is amazing, but I don't know if that's the most primary thing we should be so ramped up about. So I'm not I recognize what he's done. I understand what he's done, and it's amazing. I'm not taking anything away from the guy. I'm just a little less enamored of him. I don't know. That's my short answer. So what do you think?
I don't know. I don't know if that even gets in necessarily in the societal aspect of it. Because again, I'll go back and I'll point to there was a little bit of outrage, just a smidge, when Bezos decided to pick up the Washington Post.
Yeah, that's right.
And as a Tesla bull and a Tesla holder, distractions like this that do not benefit Tesla as an organization are frustrating to me. So personally, I would prefer that he not do stuff like this.
Yeah,
that would be my preference. But yeah. That there's a double-edged sword whenever you're dealing with Elon. There's some things within his code, if you will, that I personally am enamored by. That was the word that you used, so I'll flip it and say I'm enamored by the fact that when Elon puts his mind to do something, 99 times out of 100, he gets it done.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the guy has his current companies, like, he's a guy who did the Tesla thing, which is amazing on many fronts. He made rockets that can land, right? He's bored holes under Los Angeles and all these places. And let's not even talk about Neuralink, which is extremely interesting. Or not Neuralink. There's Starlink, or is it Neuralink?
No, there's both. There's
the implantable
there's Starlink and Neuralink. Yeah,
Neuralink is the one I was referring to. But of course, there's Starlink. There's no doubt about that. It seems like he has ideas. He makes them happen. I'm enamored with that too.
So then what's the rub? I don't understand what your rub is.
Well, to get to the social aspect of it, so advancing humanity technologically, of course, is worthwhile. But I do think, this may not be his fault, but I do think because of kind of the very visible, a lot of flashiness aspects of it, I think some people, and this is where we get into the social aspect of it, I think some people maybe focus on things such as luxury items, right, in the Tesla world, opposed to like the Tesla roof, right? Which, let's face it, the Tesla roof is a luxury item at this point. But it's got interesting, I think it has interesting implications for solar power, maybe, in the future. So I guess it's not that I have this huge problem with him, but I think I see a lot of people enamored with him, and it sure seems to be largely based on consumerist things they can purchase from him instead of the technological innovation. And if it is tech innovation, it's also not paired with humanistic advances. I think that may be kind of my thing.
Yeah, I couldn't, like, I don't even know that it's possible for me to disagree with that statement any more than I do. I think it would be absolutely impossible for me to do that.
Well, this is what we love to do.
It's like I find that argument to be so contradicting that I'm almost speechless, River.
It could be, yeah. Let's talk about it. I like it.
Well, we can talk about it because I'm almost offended by it, and the reason why I'm going to say that is you're basically saying that an individual who has basically revolutionized a push to go green does not have a positive societal impact on our environment and our planet.
No. I'm not saying that.
No, hang on. Well, but you chose to go in a direction of, oh, it's flashy, oh, it's consumer, oh, it's wealth driven.
Well, that was the first part. Yes, that was the first part. That's right.
But that's all you said. So it's not. That's all you stated. And that's where for me it becomes problematic. And this is where Hells and the Hippie differ in a lot of ways, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
It's like what you're completely disregarding is the fact that industry in this country and globally has absolutely ignored the catastrophic damage that we've done to our environment over the last, I don't know, since the Industrial Revolution.
Agreed.
He is the first individual to put his money and his mind where his mouth is in trying to be the steward of clean energy and offering products that for the most part were fairly unavailable before him. So you can say, it's like, if you even look at his competitors that he has out there, you have companies like Rivian, you have companies like Lucid. They're pumping out vehicles that are out of the grasp of the casual consumer. They can't afford 80, 90, 100,000. Tesla's producing these cars for the most part that are available under 50,000. So he's giving consumers an opportunity to be conscientious consumers, which I don't know how many companies other than maybe REI, Patagonia, maybe there's a handful more that I'm just completely overlooking, that have actually stepped out to make a difference. And not only have they done that, Tesla has been overwhelmingly successful in not only changing a culture, changing an entire industry, while returning profit to the shareholders and the stakeholders. I don't know that there's another company out there, and I don't know that there's another individual in the history of the market and or otherwise that has done what he's done. So we can say that some of his things are flashy from the standpoint, but if you're going to say that, yeah, they're flashy, yeah, they're cool, yeah, they're neato, yeah, they're technologically driven, but they're also good for the environment. And they're forcing Ford, GM, all of these other automakers to play catch up when they were more than happy to continue to pump pollution and dirty air just because it was easy and there was nobody pushing the buck. Now they're scrambling to be able to do it in scale the way he's doing it, and they can't.
They're even teaming up, right? The Ford and GM partnership to produce the supposed car under 30K. Well, if you go back, you'll see I had three statements there. That's you're focusing on that first part. Like the first thing was, so there's the people who will focus on Tesla for the consumerist things like the car, and I made a differentiated between the car versus the solar roof, which I think is there's a difference thing there, right? And the reason I like the solar roof a little bit more than a Model S or whatever is because there's more widespread practical application for generating solar power than for anything that consumes solar power. And I would say this too. You know that most people who get the Model 3, the cheaper car, you know that most people are equipping that to be more than 50K. The car aspect is a luxury item. There's no way around it.
So what, you want everybody to get a horse?
No.
I don't even understand the argument. I don't get it. We're all going to drive a Kia?
The average person is driving a Kia, right? And the greenest thing you can do is to get a used car, an ICE car, get an internal combustion engine, get a used car, and fix it when it breaks and keep it on the road for 250,000 miles. That is immensely more green than Tesla or any EV.
That is wildly short-sighted.
I think that's true.
Short-sighted.
I think that's true.
It's so short-sighted. It's ridiculous because you're completely discounting innovation.
I'm not talking about the individual.
Hang on a second. But River, you can't have it both ways. And this has been one of my biggest issues with people when it comes to technology in general. It's like, how much was a calculator back in the day? Like $500. Now they're like 50 cents. Sure. Why is that? Because technology changed. There was innovation. There was the ability to maximize things like batteries that we weren't able to do before. Tesla is an energy company. And I don't think that there's any other way to frame it. They are an energy company.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're doing that, they're going to continue to improve their batteries that are going to help not only your solar that you're talking about, but push the envelope as far as other companies and their solar and their wind and their energy.
Yeah, sure. I don't.
It's
I don't
like
doubt
so basically you are discounting, and this is mind blowing for me from a hippie standpoint. You are discounting the one capitalist and innovator on the planet that's actually doing something in order to make it better.
He's
I
definitely
just
the most visible. I mean, I really don't know. You could be right, but he can't be the only one. He's probably the most
well,
visible and the
I
most
said the
successful.
most success.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
What do you judge on in life? Your success. Trying real hard doesn't get you shit.
Well, success. What do you mean? But how do you the individual defines success? So external. That's
I don't
just.
know. Taking a company that didn't exist
Oh, I got you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure.
and vaulting it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's successful.
I got you. There's no doubt the company is successful. There's no doubt.
Pushing other companies to change their business model, these legacy industries, that's successful.
Do you think they're changing? This is not argumentative. This is a serious question. Do you think they're changing for the sake of trying to green someone, or just to keep the market share that they've become accustomed to? Do you think it's still just sort of money driven, or do you think there is, and again, I'm not arguing, just curious, do you think there is a real desire to go more energy independent and to go greener in legacy car companies? Or do you think Tesla really is still setting the? I know they're setting the bar, but what about Ford and GM? Are they just trying to catch up, or do you think they really are interested?
Well, I think there's a basic principle of evolve or die, and they're kind of staring it straight in the face. So you have evolve or die. You also have a transition, not only from a banking standpoint of many banks and financial institutions not wanting to lend money to polluters.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure,
okay.
Sure.
So you have that, and you also have legacy energy companies like an Exxon, like a Phillips, like Shell. Chevron is kind of on the outside looking in a little bit right now, but they're changing their model a little bit. That are no longer referring to themselves as oil and gas, or referring to themselves as energy companies, because they're diversifying their business portfolio as far as what they're doing. The push for green is there. So it's like how that comes about. I don't necessarily know it's important, at least from my standpoint, as that it's actually taking place. So we have something that's taking place. We have an individual innovator that's out there that's pushing the envelope on a daily basis, that is accelerating faster than anybody thought could be done. You had Tim Cook laugh in his face. You had, I don't know how many people laugh in his face as far as what he was trying to do and accomplish. Charlie Munger laughed in his face. Stupid ass Charlie. It's like you had all of these people that laughed in his face, and what did he do? He got it done. Now his thing, and now let's take it back to the original conversation with Twitter. Okay.
Okay.
The original conversation was Twitter. I've been going through Twitter today and I'm reading all this stuff on the far left as far as, oh, Elon, I'll leave Twitter and I'll do this if Elon takes over. I'll do this and that. There's all this kind of just straight garbage, and this is what the left does. Okay, the left does everything in their power to look like absolute fucking morons, time and time again. That's what the left does. Okay, so instead of looking at it and being like, okay, you didn't freak out when Bezos bought the Washington Post, but you're going to freak out now. Okay, fine. Go ahead and be a hypocrite. Totally cool with it. Whatever. Your life, your business, not mine. Okay?
Yeah. Twitter's bigger than the Post, though. Twitter is a lot bigger right now.
It wasn't 15 years ago when Bezos scooped it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Could be, could not be. But I'm with you. The far left, I hear you. I think I'm a little less critical of the far left than you might be, but I totally hear what you're saying. Nobody's going to leave Twitter. Few people are going to leave Twitter if this deal goes through and it goes private. I agree with you. For sure.
So and if they leave or if they don't, it's like let's dig into a little bit of what Elon's plan is. And he spoke about it today in his TED Talk. If you listen to what the man said and understand, it's like Elon is on the spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody knows it. Yeah, he stated publicly a million different times. Right. Okay. He said one of the most important things to him his entire life has always been the truth.
That's right.
The truth is the most important thing. That's why for him, the truth, he was able to find truth, according to his interview today, through the study of physics. Because there's no getting around what physics are. You can't cheat it, can't lie it, can't manipulate it. It is what it is. He also, as a youth, preferred to code as opposed to anything else because, again, very black and white. Either it works or it doesn't. It's either it's real or it's not. Either it's true or it's not.
0 or 1.
Right. Okay. So now let's come into Twitter. Okay. To where Twitter's become basically, and I agree in a lot of ways, the public drinking house, the bar, the town hall, the town center, where people talk and exchange ideas. The question then becomes when you have that is who is allowed to become the purveyor of truth.
That. Wait, seriously? Like that's the question?
I think that's the question in a lot of ways that he's asking, and I think in a lot of ways I'm asking at the same time. Who should be the purveyor of truth?
So 0s or 1s, objectivity, right? There is truth. There is objective truth. There's about some things, right? There's no doubt about it. There's objective truth that can be measured and can be quantified. And Twitter, how much truth do you feel like you encounter on Twitter on a daily basis?
Okay, so let's go into the next part of his plan. Okay, the next part of his plan. And again, I don't want him to do it. Let's make that very clear. I want him focused on other things, not this.
Yeah, right. I believe that makes sense.
Okay. He wants to open source the code. He wants to open source it to where people can understand what Twitter is doing to decide what pops up on your feed, what gets banned, what gets moved around, what gets shadow banned, what gets done like that, just to figure out what it is. And one of the statements that he made, again, we have to be careful that we do not allow, and I'm paraphrasing here, that we do not allow our ban or our ban to be driven on emotion. Just because we don't like a person and like what they say doesn't mean that they shouldn't be allowed to say it.
Sure, agreed. So,
okay, so basically, if Twitter is to advertise itself again as being this town hall, this social center, you can't have this type of quote unquote censorship.
That of course there's some truth to that, but there's also some misunderstanding of freedom of speech and freedom of expression going on. I mean, you can't just say, even in a real town hall, you can't just say anything you want to say out in the public air at any time with that's not what freedom of speech is, right? You can't do hate speech, you can't threaten people, et cetera, right?
This is where you're wrong. You can, there just tend to be consequences for such things.
Well, that's true. So the idea of Twitter as this place that should be completely open to every point of view, I don't know if this is, I don't think it's fine, right? Your freedom of speech doesn't apply to private companies or public companies, right? That's to protect
I totally agree.
So that's why I guess.
Wait. To protect who?
The freedom of speech is to protect yourself from the government. So the government can't censor you as you are going to criticize the government. So freedom of expression is this idea that you can express yourself in a free society and not be censored, etc. But the idea that this is happening within a corporation like Twitter is different, right? You don't have freedom of speech in places. And or at least it's not absolute, as I think some people out there are trying to say. So correct. I wonder, would he support bringing back accounts that, not just President Trump, I know that's the big thing people really want or don't want, but what about people who were banned for hate speech and stuff like that? Has he said anything about that? Or is that just people talking out there?
I think what he said specifically regarding that is sometimes you just have to allow things to be said.
And now, I'm aware.
Now, let me loop back on that because you're saying yes. So here's the difference. Once again, you're talking about Twitter in its current state. Twitter in its current state is a publicly traded company that's revenue is driven off of advertising.
Yeah.
And data. Okay. Sure. He's wanting to make it a private company that has no master, if you will.
No shareholders. I mean, correct. The bottom line would still be the master.
He's wanting to take it private.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Right.
Which means at that point he gets to, or his board or whoever, whatever, however it's set up, gets to handle and make these types of decisions. Okay, where do you push the envelope? How do you push the envelope? And I have a feeling, just based on the mere fact that he has open sourced all of his patents, that he would open source code also for this and make it more transparent. But again, let's go back to who Elon is. Elon is somebody who believes in the truth and is hold steadfast with it. Okay, that's what he's done.
And you believe that, obviously.
I believe that he can be ambitious with what he believes. Okay, I think he can be ambitious. I think he can be ambitious in his public statements regarding, how quickly things can come to market. But I do believe that he has a very, very strong internal belief that the truth is more important than anything else.
All right.
I do believe that. Now, there's one more piece to this whole thing that I think, at least when it comes to this move on Twitter, the main thing that he said that needs to be changed are the bots. Are the bot armies that get sent out. It's not so much that you have somebody speaking hate speech or somebody pumping out false information. It's much more dangerous when it's able to be magnified by bots.
Yeah, sure.
And things that aren't real.
No doubt.
So again, if he takes the company private, okay, he doesn't have to worry about active users. He doesn't have to worry about returning the number of active users to shareholders on the company conference call for earnings. He can just focus on the quality of the experience, and he doesn't have to even do that publicly. The quality of the experience will be there. But if you eliminate these bots that are able to magnify things like hate speech, things that the majority of people don't want to hear, see, or even believe, are being pumped either by foreign governments or divisive entities, then those things ultimately will police themselves. But you can't have these shell accounts out there reverberating messages. That's one of his biggest issues.
Yeah, that's bad.
And so fake news is one thing when it just happens in a little corner over here, right? But if you amplify that little conversation in the corner to be blasted everywhere, that's something different.
Yeah, agreed. I wonder if Twitter could have taken care of that by now, just already, if they really wanted to.
Okay, they could have, but they care more about their market cap than they do the actual user experience. That's been proven over and over again. That's why when we go back to it, he wants to take the company private.
Sure, yeah, no doubt. I mean, he still wants it to be profitable, of course, but I assume.
I don't know that he cares. I don't know that Bezos necessarily cared when as far as the overall profitability of the Washington Post. They in their own ways had that was their, what's the word, I guess in some ways you can call it a vanity play.
Yeah, sure.
But they found great value in it, and they didn't like the way it was going, and they wanted it to keep it and felt like they could do it a better way. They wanted to preserve what the main intention was. So I struggle with the left on this. And more so, I struggle with the left. And it's become one of those things that when I look at it overall, even going back to, and when I think about it, going back to the Trump administration and leading up to it, people were called, oh, that's a rhino. Oh, that's a never Trump, or that's this, or that's that.
Right.
And a lot of these people that were targeted and wailed on, their statement was, I didn't leave my party left me. And more and more so, I'm starting to find that myself personally. I believe that these voices on the left are completely destroying what the idea of being a liberal once was.
It's changed. There's no doubt about that. I'm with you. I mean, I'm libertarian for the most part. I'm not really going to align with, I don't even align with libertarianism really. But if I had to say something, that's probably I would be. But I mean, I've voted for Republicans. I've voted for Democrats. It's just kind of a case by case thing with me. So the team sport, like having my party, I've never really been there, but I do wonder, like the far left. Yeah, I think I could be wrong. You tell me if I am, but I think what you're describing is the far left, which hopefully is not very numerous or influential. And it sounds like you disagree with that. Maybe I'm wrong about that. You think these voices are gaining traction and power still in 2022?
I think that the far left is as perverse as the far right.
What kind of influence do you think they currently have, in your opinion? Like, I kind of dismiss the far left and far right because I don't think, they'll get any real power, and I'm not worried too much about it. But I'm kind of disconnected, living out here where I live, and I could be totally wrong about that.
It's like how powerful they are. I don't know. I think the strength of anything is always in the middle. But the problem is when you start getting into legislating and passing policy, these voices do indeed have a level of power and implication.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like I think I firmly believe that they do, but it's just like going back to what you're saying that you're not a team sport player, like as far as my team this or my team that, nor am I, but there's certain issues that I just can't overlook. I can't overlook the environment.
Yeah, agreed by the way.
It's like I can't. So until the right decides to take the environment seriously, I just can't go there.
I do think it's one of the. I mean, we have to have it. You know what I mean? It's not a negotiable thing, and if we just have to have a healthy environment, and if we keep pushing it down the road, I mean, our people who live generations past us are going to suffer because the earth is not going to be a pleasant place to be. I'm with you.
We're already suffering now, River.
Oh, don't worry, we are not done. We're not done at all. But thank you for listening. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, or you can watch on YouTube. All of these unhinged opinions belong only to Hells and the Hippie and do not represent any contracting entity that we may or may not sometimes work for. More information at www.renegadequest.com. See you next week.